Welcome back, guys. You would not exist if winter had never come. Not because cold killed the weak, but because winter forced your ancestors to invent, to plan, to remember, to trust each other or starve. A world without winter is not eternal spring. It is endless competition. Everything grows, everything burns out. Forests choke themselves with their own tangled mass, strangling the light until trees fall and rot everywhere. Disease never sleeps, not for a season, not for a week. Parasites and fungi breed year-round in the warmth and damp. Your body becomes their home. Rot ate through food stores, unstoppable. Animals feeding on rotting things multiplied. Flies would explode in number. Mosquitoes, worse things everywhere. Until the air itself became a burden. What you would call survival would actually be drowning on dry land. So far you have heard what an endless warm world destroys. But there is something deeper. Winter is not just a survival filter. It is a memory machine. Every year the same season returns. With the same brutal your ancestors had to remember what worked. Without that grinding deadline returning each year, there is no reason to plan ahead. No reason to save anything. No reason to teach the young ones what to do. Knowledge just dies with each body that falls. Your brain develops because winter demands it grow. Cold forces you to hold complexity in your head. Without that annual deadline, a warm world brain stays small. Your brain did not grow because life felt easy. It grew because you had to imagine months ahead. Every 4 months, winter arrives and asks, "Did you plan?" That pressure, that annual test, rewired how your ancestors thought. They had to see next winter before it came. They tracked which day it was in the year, which animal left when, how much fat their bodies could burn before spring returned. These are not rules written in your genes, they are math only a large brain can hold. Remove the deadline and you remove the need to build memory itself. Your brain costs energy, it burns fuel faster than any other part in your body, so it only grows when the payoff is worth the price. In a world that never hardens, never punishes delay, never asks you to predict what comes next, you have no reason to pay that price. Your ancestors would have stayed simple, like the other apes, and there is nothing wrong with that. Except you would not have inherited the tool that made you human. Language itself would not have evolved. Door would have stayed a simple alarm call, never a way to hold yesterday and tomorrow in the same breath. Culture, the way knowledge passes from one person to the next, would never get written into your bones. It lives only in the space between people, passed forward when someone teaches it. Without winter, that chain breaks. In a warm world with no scarcity, there is no reason to gather around a fire and say, "Listen, this is how we survived last time." Every year, the crisis arrives on schedule. So every year, someone has to stand up and say, "Remember?" Without that return, memory stops being handed down. Knowledge dies when the person who holds it dies. Your ancestors never build the that hold it. No stories that matter. No rituals. No reason to teach your child anything at all. Because everything food is there for the taking right now. Winter makes you plan. Winter makes you remember. Winter makes you teach. Winter built the brain that built you. Without it, you simply never exist. That simple act forcing memory onto the next generation is what keeps knowledge alive. Remove that pressure, and you remove the reason to teach. The eldest sits by the fire, ready to speak, but nobody listens. The youngest ones wander off, never learning to pay attention, because no one forced them to. This is what happens without winter's returning deadline. Knowledge dies with the person who holds it. Your ancestors did not invent writing because they suddenly got smarter. They invented it because winter had already forced them to memorize so much that their brains alone could not hold it all anymore. Memory had to move outside the body. Without winter, without that annual deadline pushing you to plan months ahead, your brain never grows large enough to hold it, so you never invent writing. But your body still carries winter's shape in your skeleton right now. Built to survive cold, to store fat for lean months, to generate heat, to huddle for warmth. Your stomach breaks down meat faster than plants. Your ancestors needed that skill-hunting large game when the ground froze and plants disappeared. In a warm world forever, without winter, your ancestors never focus on hunting. They gather what grows constantly, and your teeth, your jaw, your whole body stays shaped for plants instead. To preserve food, to teach strategy. You would be smaller, weaker, built for warmth that never demanded you to generate your own heat. Your ancestors would have stayed thin-boned like most warm climate animals, because muscle for insulation would not be worth the cost. And without the need to store fat through months of scarcity, your metabolism would run lean year-round. But here is what makes this real, really shifts. Your ancestors never developed the range of foods that made you human. Winter forced your ancestors to hunt large animals, to dry meat so it lasts, to plan hunts weeks ahead. Without that push, your ancestors would never hunt large prey or learn to keep meat fresh. They would eat like apes do. No spears. No blades. No reason to sharpen bone or stone when soft food grew everywhere year-round. Your hands would have stayed shaped for picking fruit, not for building or carving. So the real question emerges, not what you would lack, but who you would actually be. You would be intelligent, your brain would still work, still solve problems, still find food. But you would be something closer to an ape with better memory. Clever, but not driven to plan ahead, not shaped by yearly deadlines. You are not just made from their bones and blood. You are made from the pressure winter put on them. Right now, in warm months, your body follows instructions written into your genes thousands of years ago by people standing in snow. Your stomach knows to store extra fuel because winter taught your ancestors that lean months always return. So your body learned to prepare before the cold arrives. Your strongest bonds form when you face a shared crisis together, and winter forced that on your ancestors every single year. Cooperate or die alone. Your sense of time itself, the way you imagine months ahead, is carved into your bones by winter. You divide time into seasons even when you live somewhere. Seasons barely exist. That ghost of a calendar is not something you learned in school. It is wired into your body itself. Your stress hormones spike in autumn even if you never left the city. Your mood dips when daylight fades. Your energy shifts with the sun. Your appetite changes with temperature, even though your thermostat keeps the room warm. Without winter, you would never feel that whisper of urgency. That pressure inside your chest when autumn arrives, that is winter still talking to you across thousands of years. Your ancestors are not dead. Every choice you make today is shaped by a season that no longer touches you. Your plan to work 5 years from now comes from winter asking you to imagine. Your trust in a stranger who says they will return comes from people who had to believe each other after the thaw. Your guilt when you break a promise, your relief when it is kept, those emotions winter planted in your ancestors 10,000 years ago.